So, of course, for Detroit sports this week, well, the Pistons begin their toughest stretch of the season with their first next 4 games being against some pretty stiff competition. A couple of them being title contenders, including 2 of the top teams in the West. And the Red Wings are officially back in business with the Olympic break officially in the review, as now all focus and attention heads towards the push to the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, let's see how Detroit sports fared this week. Starting off, of course, with the Red Wings, and yes, with the Wings season officially back, I did say before the Olympic break, I did have some Red Wing jerseys I ordered coming in. And all those jerseys I said I had ordered, they all came in during the Olympic break, right on schedule. And this is one of them. Yes, this is an Alex DeBrincat Stadium Series jersey from last year. Actually looks pretty cool, too. I like this jersey a lot. Pretty nice. As, of course, the Wings had 2 road games this week to come back from the Olympic break. Starting off, of course, with a date in the Canadian nation's capital of Ottawa against the Senators. And there were questions about if Dylan Larkin was going to be good to go, concerning the amount of partying he's done in Miami after USA's gold medal win at the Olympics over Canada in overtime. 46 years to the day of the Miracle on Ice in 1980. And well, despite any questions about Larkin's status, Larkin was at practice and was good to go for the game in Ottawa, along with Lucas Raymond and Mort Seider. And with the way Larkin played, it was obvious he was not hungover enough from that partying in Miami. And trust me, I know about those videos. I saw the videos. I know how hard he partied in Miami. Because that was the same club that the Florida Panthers partied in last year after winning the Cup, when they threw Brad Marchand in the air repeatedly, the Pink Pony Club, while he held the cup in the air. Which, that's the more impressive part. He was still able to hold the cup above his head while the team threw him up in the air while Pink Pony Club played in the back room. But anyway, to the game itself. Well, this was mainly a low-scoring defensive battle. Of course, this game was also Simon Edvinsson's first game back from injury when he got injured before the break. And Edvinsson made quite an impact when he laid out Brady Tkachuk and sent his ass straight to the shadow realm. Honestly, I love this picture so much of him hammering Brady Tkachuk. Normally in this situation, I don't celebrate a player getting hurt. This is an exception in this case because, hey, remember all those times since Ottawa fans made fun of Wayne's players getting injured every time the Waynes played against Ottawa? Even going as far as making jokes about one of Dylan Larkin's miscarried children with his wife a few years ago after getting knocked unconscious. All I say to Ottawa fans is, karma's a bitch, ain't it? Now tell Brady Tkachuk to get the fuck up, his team needs you. And of course, Dylan Cozens made the mistake of trying to drop gloves and fight Edvinsson. It went about as well as you think. I mean, what do you think was going to happen when you fight a 6'8" Swedish defenseman? You're going to get knocked the fuck out. And also, Edvinsson did nothing wrong to Brady Tkachuk. Brady ran right into him. It was a clean hit. Brady stood his ground. Like, honestly, Brady Tkachuk should spend less time running his mouth and more time keeping his damn head up. And you know what doesn't help Brady's case in this situation? The fact that he was fine. I mean, it's easy to make fun of Brady Tkachuk's situation here. Since he really didn't get hurt, he just had the wind knocked out of him. And because he got right back up and he was chirping Edvinsson at the penalty box to the point where the ref got fed up with his shit and told Brady to get in the box. You're getting a 10-minute misconduct for unsportsmanlike. And before Brady got the penalty, it was going to be a 4-on-4. But because Brady wanted to stop running his mouth and wanted to shut the fuck up, it became a 4-on-3 power play for Detroit. But in the end, Detroit handled business on the road in Ottawa, with Dylan Larkin getting both goals for the Red Wings. As, Larkin continues his run after winning Olympic gold, and he follows it up by being the hero in Ottawa, mainly getting the game winner in overtime after getting fed a breakaway pass from Alex DeBrincat, and then Larkin calling game. So Captain Larks continues his great run. fresh off the Olympics. And of course, the Wayne's good times, though, would come to a bit of a screeching halt, though, as they would end up suffering a bad loss to Carolina up in Raleigh, to the Hurricanes. Even despite the Wayne's best efforts, the game just got away from them in the third, as they didn't have enough gas to keep up with the Hurricanes, with the Hurricanes now being the top team in the Eastern Conference. Of course, that loss also was a big blow for the Wings, as the Wings now fall out of the top 3 in the Atlantic Division, and now the Wings sit as the first wild card in the Eastern Conference playoff race. And of course, we do got the trade deadline looming next week. Actually, next Friday this Friday to be exact. And of course, the Waynes have been aggressive in trying to make some moves to buy at the deadline to make a push for the playoffs. As the Waynes are looking at making a run at Tyler, making a big offer to Vancouver for Tyler Myers. Actually, scratch that one. Tyler Myers has no interest in waiving his no-trade clause to Detroit. Never mind, we aren't getting him. But the Waynes are interested. There have been rumors that the Waynes could be interested in Elias Patterson. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Steve Eisman cooks up. But hey, you can't fault Steve Eisman this year. He actually made some moves. Problem is, every player worth a damn in this league has a no-trade clause. You just gotta hope you're on Detroit's on the list to be traded for that certain player. But yeah, depending on if the Waynes make any moves or not, it's going to depend on if the Waynes get the focus on next week's recap by default, since next week's the NHL trade deadline. And if the Waynes make any moves, we'll go over those deadline moves. But yeah, that's the Waynes action for this week. Of course, another week of Tiger spring training. A fish week comes and goes. And well, this week wasn't a complete disaster like last week to start off, as the Tigers had some pretty more competitive games where they didn't give up 20 runs in a game. They even had a couple ties with the Blue Jays mixed in, and they even won some games this week, so there's some improvement already. But yeah, so far the Tigers' spring training has not really gotten up to a good foot. There have been some promises though, but you know, still a lot more to be desired. I mean, also not having Therese Skubal right now, it doesn't help too, with Skubal heading off to play for what is stint with Team USA for the World Baseball Classic, of course, coming up. But yeah, once his stint's done, he'll be coming right back to the 3-1-3 to play, to continue to pitch ball. But yeah, at least this week was a lot better than the start of last week. And of course, some more Detroit fans coming down in the coming weeks to Florida to enjoy the hot Florida weather while enjoying some baseball too. Anything to get out of the cold weather up north, I guess. Detroit basketball! Now we get to the Pistons this weekend. Well, this week begins the Pistons' hard 6-game stretch as they play some pretty stiff competition. Of course, the stiff competition begins with a Monday night showdown against one of the top teams, one of the hottest teams in the West in San Antonio. And well, if you remember how last year went, when we gave the Spurs belt to ass twice, well, there's one thing I gotta tell you about this. Marco Averis and all the Spurs fans took that belt to ass about as well as you think. As yeah, there was one thing they had on their mind from last year for this Monday night, and that was revenge in the 3-1-3. Everyone wondering, what did I do possibly to piss Mark off? I honestly don't know. I think the list might be a little too much. I think if there's anything I did to piss him off, it might be more NASCAR related than anything. But yeah, their Spurs fans had revenge on their mind entering this game. And well, for the Pistons, they didn't play too bad. I mean, it was a pretty close game in the first half. It was back and forth in the first half. But then the second half happened, and well, the Pistons, they just let this game get away from them in the second half. They were just a bit sloppy. Like, just too many turnovers and being unable to stop Victor Wembanyama was what led to the Pistons' downfall against the Spurs. Like, in terms of Wembanyama's being unstoppable in this game, you want to know what really could have helped in this game? Probably Isaiah Stewart. because Isaiah could have at least kept Wemby at bay. But without Isaiah, I think this just shows how valuable Isaiah Stewart is to the Pistons. Because without him, the Pistons were like lambs led to a slaughter against the Spurs. And the Spurs get their revenge against the 3-1-3. So despite Detroit's efforts this year, they still got a lot of ways to go and learn. Especially with getting some of the top competition in the West. Because that Spurs team's going to be a team to watch out for in the playoffs. Because I think they can go beat the Thunder in the playoffs if they play their cards right. Honestly, the Spurs, well, we still got to play them one more time next week, but the Spurs, that could be a team the Pistons might have to deal with in the finals. Especially if that Phil Jackson theory of the 40-20 theory is true, where to be considered a championship contender, you have to win 40 games before losing 20. And in case you're wondering about that theory, who qualifies on that theory, there are only 3 teams that qualify under that theory. Those 3 being the Oklahoma City Thunder, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Detroit Pistons. So if you're wondering what the NBA Big 3 is this year, the Big 3 is OKC, San Antonio, and the 3-1-3. If anyone wondering what about Boston, no, Boston not qualified. They lost 20 games before hitting 40 wins. So Boston does not qualify. They probably could have if they had Jason Tatum. But yeah. But of course the Pistons, though, they didn't stay down long after what happened with the Spurs. They bounced right back against Oklahoma City. They also had to play the Thunder right after. And they actually handled business well. Well, mainly getting some benefit of the doubt from not having to deal with Al Shida in this game. With SGA out for this game. But with how much shit the Thunder talked about the Pistons earlier in the year, they don't get the injury excuse card. With how much shit they talked about the Pistons earlier in the year. Talk about how the Pistons aren't for real, they haven't played anybody. Well, guess what? That team you called a fraud, they kicked your ass all over their home court in the 3-1-3 as the Pistons had their way with the Thunder dominating this game. Even though the Thunder tried to make a late comeback, they just didn't have enough firepower to beat the Pistons, and the Pistons take care of business against the Thunder. So yeah, I like the Pistons' chances against Oklahoma City if they face the Thunder in the finals. I'm more concerned about San Antonio right now. Because when we play the Spurs the second time, I believe we still won't have Isaiah Stewart for that game. Or it's going to be close to find if Stewart comes back, we'll be back in time for that or not. And of course, but the Pistons had a really good showing there. And then the Pistons followed that up with a big win at home against Cleveland in overtime. Mainly off the back of Duran and Cade continuing to play well, especially Cade playing at an MVP level. Still. But I mean, you want to know what also gives the Pistons some motivation against Cleveland? I don't know, some jackass at one of the Tiger spring training games wearing a jersey that said games back 15.5. Reminding Tiger fans that they blew a 15.5 game division lead to the Cleveland Guardians. Honestly, I don't know why Cleveland fans still circle jerk each other over that. Considering that, didn't the Cleveland Guardians literally lose to the Tigers in the wild card round right after that? Making that division title and comeback pretty meaningless because when you couldn't beat the Tigers when it mattered the most. But hey, this is why Cleveland fans aren't really that respected and why everyone thinks Cleveland fans are mentally challenged. Hey, Cleveland gonna Cleveland, I guess. And well, I guess that was just enough bulletin board material for the Pistons to take care of business and take out the Cavaliers. As the Pistons show that this is their division, not Cleveland's. And that Cleveland ain't coming back from 15.5 games this time. Not this time, because the Pistons are no goddamn Tigers, that's for sure. And the Pistons followed that up with a big win against Orlando tonight, beating the Magic. Mainly, it was a pretty hectic game in the first half, but the Pistons were able to turn it up in the second half. And as the Pistons made adjustments at halftime, and got it done against the Magic. But crazy thing this year is that the Pistons haven't lost to an Eastern Conference team twice this year. That's the more impressive part. And also with the win against Orlando, the Pistons now have reached 45 wins this year. Keep in mind, they only won 44 games last year. And this year, they're already at 45 wins. And we've only played 59 games this year. Like, the Pistons are at this many wins, and they still got 23 games left in the season. And the Pistons still hold on to their 5.5, 6 game lead in the division over New York and Boston. And keep in mind, Pistons have head-to-head tiebreaker over the Celtics and the Knicks. So yeah, Pistons still looking like the front runners as they continue to keep pace. But yeah, really in terms of this stretch, this 4-game week, this was a week I was pretty nervous about, considering that this is going to be this 6-game stretch is going to be the hardest stretch of the season for the Pistons right here. You know, especially in this stretch, you have to play Cleveland twice, and they play San Antonio a second time, because next week they got to deal with Cleveland and San Antonio on the road, as Orlando begins a bit of a road trip for the Pistons. But hey, the Pistons held their own this week, even though, the only real negative was that second half collapse against the Spurs, where they were doing pretty well and just let the Spurs escape into the damn woods. But don't worry, Pistons, you'll have your chance at payback next week. Unless the Spurs are still mad, unless Marco Averis and the Spurs fans are still mad about the belt to ass last week. Not much I can do about that. But yeah, anyway, another solid week for the 3-1-3 as Pistons basketball continues to roll on as they inch ever so closer to clinching a playoff spot. I believe the Pistons could clinch a play-in spot with another solid week this week. Don't know about not playoff spot yet. Not for at least another week or two. They clinch a top 6. And no, there will be no playoff-bound graphic for a play-in spot. Pistons only get a playoff-bound graphic if they clinch a top 6 seed. That's the only way. No play-in dog shit. But yeah, Pistons continue to roll on. Another week in the mirror. As of course, not only do we keep throwing the wings up with the deadline looming, it's also Detroit basketball, baby. Hallelujah. It's crazy how different things look. But yeah. See you all next week. I'm out.